Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today let's do my February wrap up. So in the month of February, I did read quite a bit of stuff, not very long books, but I did read a mix of things. I read novellas, I read short stories, and I read a few full-length novels. So let's just get right into it. The first thing that I finished this month was a short story called And on Their Graves a Fall of Angels by Natalie Theodoridou. This is from Uncanny Magazine, volume 67, I believe. This is a really interesting speculative short story that's post-apocalyptic, and it takes place in a world where these angels kind of fell from heaven or wherever they fell from, and our main character is a trans man who hunts angels for money, for livelihood. Not a lot of money. These angels are kind of treated like pests in the same way that you would get rid of an invasive species. That's kind of the way that people look at these angels. And it's a very like odd, eerie, kind of sad and lonely short story. I gave it 3 stars. I'm still kind of working on how I go about rating short stories. One of my goals for this year is to read more short stories, and now I have to kind of figure out how to like rate and talk about them, since it's such a different way to approach speculative fiction. But I gave it 3 stars. We'll see how I feel about that in the future. I do like the writing style and like the mood that this conveyed. I kind of felt like I was missing something, like I was missing some sort of moral, or I was missing some sort of like meaning to this. It kind of just was a little story, and it wrapped up very interesting, but I didn't know what to get from it, so I gave it 3 stars. After that, I read The Governess Affair by Courtney Milan. This is my first attempt with this author, and it was a shorter work. I started this one because a lot of people recommended this series overall and said to try out this novella. I gave it 3 stars as well. I think I struggled in this story because there were some moments where the romance didn't really feel earned, or the feelings or the yearning didn't really feel earned, but then some moments were stronger in the romance, so I kind of had like mixed feelings about it. I am interested to read more of Courtney Milan. I know she's very well liked and respected amongst historical romance readers, so maybe this just wasn't like the best place to start. But the story is about a woman who goes to a duke and is saying that she's owed something from him. We don't really know what she's owed, and this duke, who's a piece of shit, goes to his right-hand man, is like, hey, get rid of this governess because she's gonna like ruin my reputation. Luckily for us, the duke's right-hand man is actually not that terrible of a person, and that's kind of where romance happens. It's a very short novella, and I think it takes place fairly early on in the series. I don't know what the series is called off the top of my head. Rebel something, I'm not sure. I will try something full length from this author though. In the month of February, I did do an author binge, and I vlogged myself reading a ton of work from one author, and that was P. Djeli Clark. So you're gonna see a lot of P. Djeli Clark in this wrap up. The vlog should also already be up, but the first book that I finished from this author was The Black God's Drums. I really enjoyed this one. I gave it 4.5 stars. It is the shortest of the work that I read from him. This is an alternate history where the Union and the Confederacy still exist, but it takes place in a neutral ground, New Orleans, during Mardi Gras, and we follow our main character Creeper, who finds out that the Confederacy have kidnapped this doctor or this scientist who has access to the Black God's Drums, which is a way to call upon this African god named Shango, and Shango can summon like intense storms. This is a really interesting story. I really like a bunch of elements in here. Our main character Creeper has another goddess that lives and speaks through her almost, and the relationship that she has with the goddess, the goddess's relationship with everyone else in this book. I found it really interesting. Obviously, if you want to hear more of my thoughts on this book, go watch the vlog. I'm gonna say this for every one of P. Djeli Clark's work: I want more. If you can write more short stories in this world, I would absolutely love that. The next book that I read from P. Djeli Clark was The Dead Cattail Assassins. I really love this one. I would say this is probably my favorite of everything that I read from him, which is odd because this one doesn't get talked about as much as his other work. I gave this one 4.5 stars as well. This was such a fun adventure, kind of mystery heist thing. It kind of reminded me of the Scott Pilgrim setup where he has to fight a bunch of like evil exes. Our main character has to deal with like a ton of other shitty assassins, but in this book we follow a character who is an assassin, and part of being an assassin is that you don't remember your human life. She's also undead, so she doesn't remember her human life, but she gets contracted out to kill someone. When she goes to complete her contract, she looks at the person who she's supposed to kill and gets a memory from her human life, and that's where our story starts. If she doesn't complete her contract, She herself is on the chopping block. I really enjoyed this. This was so fun. This had a kind of Venetian vibe, but it also had elements of like North African, Middle Eastern, and maybe like Caribbean influences, like cultural influences. Such a good time. Great world building, great characters, and like I said last time, I want more from this world. I want more from everything that P. Djeli Clark has written. And then after that, I did pick up Ring Shot, which is P. Djeli Clark's probably most recognized and praised novella. I really like this as well. I was stuck between a 4 and a 4.5, and in the vlog I landed on a 4.25. But fuck it, we'll just say 4.5 because I don't like 0.25s or 0.75 ratings. They're not for me. But we'll just land on 4.5 because I think writing wise, skill wise, this is probably like his best. And you know, I'm not a writer, so what do I know? But I feel like this one, the author had certain themes and certain things that he really wanted to touch on, and he did it really well with this concept. If you haven't heard about this one, we follow a group of freedom fighters who are killing members of the KKK who are actually possessed by demons or who are demons. It's explained better in the book, but essentially one of the leaders of the KKK summoned demons from another realm, and these demons feed on hate, so they kind of transform normal members of the KKK into demons, and our main characters kill them. It's a horror, so there's some very horrifying moments, but it's also kind of like action-y in some moments as well. I've said this before, and it also said it in a blurb, but it's kind of like a really intense episode of like Buffy or like Supernatural, obviously with different themes and approaches. But I really enjoyed this on like a writing level, on like as an experience as a reader. There was just a lot going on in here. It was really ambitious, but I think it really paid off. I said this in the vlog, but I don't know if this author can write a bad book, especially if it's a short work. Like, he thrives in short work, speculative fiction. And then I read The Haunting of Tram Car 15. This is one of his mystery novellas that, again, I really enjoyed. I gave this one 4 stars. This is probably like the worst one that I read from him, but it's not bad. It's just not as like exciting or thematically intense as his other work. But in this one, we follow an older agent who's kind of like stuffy, and he's part of the Ministry of Alchemy, Enchantments, and Supernatural Entities. It takes place in Cairo, 1912, and he is investigating a haunted tram car. This book takes place in a really cool alternate history version of Cairo, where Djinn and magic and other magical creatures are kind of quite commonplace, and it's a really witty kind of series. I really enjoyed this one. I mentioned this in the vlog, and I really saw it emphasized here. I love when you have a kind of confined story, like a small little conflict, but in the background of the story you have major changes. In this case, we're just solving a little mystery, but in the back of this story, in the background, we are seeing Egyptian women fight for their right to vote, and I really like that kind of parallel movement in a way in stories. And the last book that I read from P. Djeli Clark was A Master of Djinn. This takes place in the same world as Tram Car 15, but this follows a different agent. We follow an agent called Fatma, and she is so cool. I adore her. I think she's so witty. She dresses kind of dandy. It's described as like dandyism, so like suits and like cool shoes and stuff like that, with like a bowler hat. In this one, we are following Agent Fatma as she is investigating the mass murder of a secret brotherhood. I believe at the time this was P. Djeli Clark's first attempt at a full-length novel. That was what one of my concerns was, how well he would approach something a bit longer than 200 pages, and he did good. I gave this one 4 stars. I still had a lot of fun with this one. Mystery pacing was a little not as strong. It wasn't bad, but I felt like there's a lot of back and forth between like a certain few number of suspects and like informants. Like, we just kept going back and forth between like a set number of people, and that was fine. I think it just could have been better. I think this author just does so well at setting up worlds and characters and magic and building worlds. I really enjoyed the humor of this. I talked about it in the vlog, how I really enjoy kind of play on words humor, kind of like not smart humor, that sounds kind of like elitist, but just something that requires a little bit more mental work than like fart jokes or something. One thing that I always want recommendations for is a mystery novel with a historical setting and magic. If there are any books with those three components, I'm so down to read, and this has all of that. I really want the author to write more in this world. He's written quite a few things already. I feel like this could be like my Murderbot series or my Wayward Children series. A lot of people really love those and always have some of those books to fall back on. I want more of these. And the last book that I finished in the month of February was Royal Assassin by Robin Hobb. I have been reading this throughout the month of February. I took a break to do the P. Djeli Clark vlog, but I did finish this a few days ago, and I did enjoy it. I did give it 4 stars though, which is half a star less than Assassin's Apprentice. The main thing about this book was that it was frustrating in a good way and frustrating in a bad way. I will talk about the good way first. If you're not familiar with this story, we follow our main character named Fitz, who is a royal bastard. He was left with the royal family when he was really young. Didn't really know what to do with him. Eventually, he became the assassin's apprentice. That was book 1. At this point, Fitz is a little bit older, I think 16, 17, and there's a lot of problems going on in the kingdom. He has the capability to help. The thing about this story is that if he was not a bastard, so many problems would have been easily dealt with. And I think that's the frustrating part of this, that the author was intending to make frustrating, is that Fitz is in between a rock and a hard place. There's only so much that he can do, and there's so much that he can't do because of his position. And he does have the skill set to make changes in this with the problems that the 6 duchies have. All the conflict that Fitz has that he has to go up against, it's so tough to read, but I understand why the author did that. Sometimes solutions aren't easy and the story takes some time. It's a very slow moving story. I would not say it's fast paced at all, and I really appreciate the slowness of this. I really appreciate the build up, and sometimes, you know, stuff is incredibly frustrating and you kind of have to deal with it. So I appreciated that aspect of like the frustrating part of the book. However, frustrating bad. I don't like talking bad about romance in epic or high fantasy because sometimes I feel like certain readers just like shit on romance plot lines because it's not like cool badass magic or fighting or whatever. But in this case, the romance through line, did not like it. It was very frustrating to read in a bad way, or maybe the author wanted it to be frustrating for us as well, as part of like Fitz's struggle in this world in his life. But it was not great to read. I don't want to spoil much, but every time that we dealt with this romantic conflict, I was just so bored. It was not fun to read. It was not engaging to read. I'm sure that this plot line will have some effect on the story later on. I kind of have a guess as to where it's going, but I did not like reading it. It was not fun. Every time that these two characters got together, I was rolling my eyes. I was not into it. And one of the characters I feel in this relationship is actually, you know, level-headed and understands the world and has a good grasp on reality. And for some reason, they were so naive. They were incredibly naive. I felt more so than was believable. And I guess you can say that, oh, well, you know, young love and people do silly things when they're in love. I feel like that's kind of like a cop-out. I think Robin Hobb is a very intentional author. Everything that she writes, says or doesn't say has a point. And I felt like one of the characters in this romance just became dumb in the middle. Every time that they were in a romantic scene, they just became dumb and didn't quite think about things. And I felt like they were smart enough to be realistic about what can and cannot happen in this relationship. It was not fun to read. I really didn't like it. And because of that romance, I gave the book 4 stars. It could have easily been 4.5 because I was so emotionally invested. Every time Fitz had a drawback, I was like, oh no. Oh god. But I'm very excited to see where the story goes from here, because there are a lot of downs. I feel like the story just kept going down, 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 and then there's like a bit where it picked up and then it went back down again, and then it kind of leveled out a little bit. So very excited to see where to go from here. I read the first book in September or August of last year, and it took me this long to get back into the second book, but I think I just want to jump into the third book and continue on with this Farseer trilogy and eventually the grander realm of the Elderlings. I forgot to mention I read another novella. I don't have a physical copy, which is why it slipped my memory, but I read Murder by Memory slipped my memory. This is a very short mystery novella that takes place in the far future. I really like the concept of this. Our main character is a detective on this huge, like, habitable ship that is making a 1,000-year journey from old Earth to whatever their destination is. I believe they're only like 200 300 years into their journey, so they have quite a bit to go. The way that the world works is, or the way that the ship works, is that people age and die, but people's memories and their consciousness can be kind of downloaded into these like book things. So when you die, you can kind of rest for a few years if you want, and then you can be brought back to life. So no one really ever dies for the most part in this setting. Even people who accidentally pass away, like you trip and fall, your memory is still downloaded somewhere, so you can just be brought back to life. If you have a partner and you both want to rest for 10 years or something, you can be put shelved next to each other and then be brought back together. And I thought that was really cool and interesting way to like deal with murder. I guess it gives the author the opportunity to continuously like making these mystery novels if she wants to. I believe there is already a second novella out or will come out soon. It's also very queer. Olivia Waite wrote one of my favorite historical romances, which was called A Lady's Guide to Celestial Bodies, I want to say. Really enjoyed that one. Really witty. I love like witty play on words type of humor. I talked about that earlier already. But our main character is a detective, and there's not really a lot of punishment on these ships because you can, I mean, yes, you can kill someone, but they'll be brought back to life. It's kind of like a utopia, but most utopias aren't really real, so there's like drawbacks that we see throughout the book. But our main character was planning to go to sleep for quite some time, but she's woken up maybe like a year or two into her rest, and she's brought back into a body that she did not want, and she is going to solve a murder, and she might be in the body of the murderer. This was really fun, really witty. I'd read like 10 of these if the author wanted to write 10 of these. This is as close to cozy mystery as I will ever get, probably. I wouldn't classify this as cozy because people died, but I know some people feel cozy is more of like a vibe as opposed to like the content. I personally love cozy vibes, but also like small stakes, like no murder. Obviously there's murder in this one, but I'm not very good with cozy mysteries. I'm better with cozy sci-fi, and I feel like that's why I really enjoyed this. The sci-fi setting is so cool, really interesting. I gave this one 4 stars. So that is officially everything that I read during the month of February. I feel like I read a lot of great things, a lot of shorter works, which I don't mind. I don't think I had a really bad experience with any of these books. Maybe slightly bored with like the Governess affair, but for the most part really enjoyed what I read, mostly thanks to reading P. Djeli Clark's work. But let me know what you think about anything that I talked about in this video. What did you read in February? What was your favorite read? What was your least favorite read? Have you read any of these books? I'd like to hear anything you have to say down below in the comments. I will also link my social medias down below, as well as some far more important links. Feel free to like, dislike, comment, or subscribe, or do neither. It's all cool with me. If you don't know what to say in the comments, just leave an emoji. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.